Hello everyone, and welcome to a mini edition of Walford Weekly, because we're on holiday.
Teeny tiny.
We're filming abroad, like they used to do in EastEnders.
Abroad? Oh my goodness, you're going to upset our Scottish listeners straight away.
No,
we're not abroad.
No, I know.
We're over the border. We've gone to Scotland, and it's very nice. And thank you to everyone who's welcomed us. It's great fun up here, actually.
We just have no time to do a real show, but we're still going to do a show, because we've got the review of 1992, vintage year.
Yep, that's
fine wine, that is.
It's an excellent year. Mwah. If you could see me, I'm doing a chef's kiss. It's such a good year, and we're going to do that later. You're going to hear that later on.
We're just going to do a mini review. Not so vintage weeks between the 9th and the 12th of March. Is it March? I think so.
I think so. We were in March still.
Yeah. Not quite so vintage this week, but it's okay. We had quite a lot going on.
Yeah, lots going on, but perhaps maybe not what was to Ben's liking. I quite enjoyed the last two episodes, but I know a lot of people didn't like Thursday, because on Thursday they did a double episode in the UK, and instead of a Friday episode, because we've got Sport Relief over here on Friday, which is a charity event.
It's meant to be a short review, and you're talking about Sports Relief. We're talking about EastEnders.
I'm encouraging people to donate.
Nope.
Give to charity.
No, I don't care. No, it was an okay week, but it just was a bit like pliddy-ploddy, I feel. It
was the cement that was filling in the gaps of the brick wall of solidarity that's about to come for all the stories.
I guess so. I mean, I still don't like many of the stories. There's a lot of holes. Like, we'll start with the Suki one, because that was the beginning of the week. Because Suki's secret is out.
Yes, but it came out last week, or at least Jean knew last week, and this week Shirley convinced her to tell everyone. So, of course, where's the staging ground for any secret to come out? The Queen Vic.
The Prince Albert.
The Queen Vic. The Prince Albert had quite the celebration this week as well, didn't it? Had an air hockey table.
It's a straight club now.
The men loved it. They kept stroking that table like it was a fine woman.
But yeah, we know that Suki's been lying about cancer. Now, I guess everyone kind of knows. But like, I feel like the reveal or the fallout of it was a bit like all the brothers and sisters, the Panesar brothers and sisters, they all just were like, oh, okay. It was like she just told them that she'd stolen a 99p sweet from a shop or something. It didn't seem like it wasn't like a big deal that she faked cancer and said she was dying. So I don't know, like the method behind why Suki did it seems a bit odd to me. It doesn't quite add up.
It's the dad, isn't it? The first mention of him came out this week, and so she did it all because she wanted them all to be a family once he gets out of prison. So they've got a criminal father. So that kind of explains the method of why the boys of the Panesars are the way they are.
That's right. I mean, we thought maybe he was dead. They'd not really said, had they?
No.
They used to own a corner shop because they bought that photo for her, but that's all we knew. But apparently he's in prison. But, like, why did she have to fake cancer? Because the dad... Like, it just seems weird.
Because there's only one way to bring a family together, and that's a fake cancer storyline.
Yeah, it seems a bit... odd, but
Ash wasn't very happy about it, and Vinny and Kirit wasn't particularly very happy about it. The only one who didn't seem to give a monkeys was Jags. He just sat in the corner, grumbling and eating.
Did his one line and hugged her, and then that was it. But I guess that's out. So I don't know what's next for Suki now. I guess that frees her up. But when people in the square start to know, I don't know how they're going to accept her. I mean, Kat's not very accepting already, nor's Jean.
Well, let's quickly talk about Jean, because after some misguided advice by Shirley, where she said, you're a much better person now, Jean's now off her meds.
Yeah, she kind of took that as like, you're stronger now, maybe you don't need your meds. That's how Jean heard it. Well, obviously she does. But we know that Jean gets a bit feisty. She starts smoking. She starts going to caravans and has strange names. So Suki needs to watch out now.
Yeah.
If Jean is off her meds.
I feel there's going to be a fight in the middle of the gardens at some point soon.
What else did we have? We had the Whitney storyline. Should we talk about that? Weird.
I think we'd better.
Casting.
Her decasting, as you put it to me on Thursday.
I did.
Because this is weird, because we know what Whitney looks like as a child, because she was introduced into the soap as a child.
Quite young, 15, 16, wasn't she?
Yeah, so...
I'm guessing this young Whitney, what was she? 13, 14?
She does say, doesn't she? She says she's 13, I think, or 12. She says she's just becoming a teenager. I wanted them to do what they did like with Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, and have a hologram young Whitney in the room, and they like recreated young Whitney.
Give it a year, they will.
On stage singing.
I mean, yeah, it was a bit cringy. I mean, it's a shame because Shona's so good. And like, she did do the most, because the whole situation, the whole thing's a bit odd. Like, it's this weird empty prison, this blue filter, and there's loads of steam and mist coming through to make it look
with smoke
atmospheric.
She's not in a swamp.
It just looks all a bit naff, and there's like one prison guard and You don't see any other inmates.
Well,
it's all a bit like
the thing that
isolated.
The thing I don't get is how caring all the prison officers and all the staff at the prison are. Because I'm not discrediting of the prison service. I'm sure I know you do a grand service, but would they really have the time to like commit to helping this one inmate when there's so many other inmates in there? They probably have very similar.
Oh, is there? I've not seen one yet. Even in the visiting room, there was only one woman in the background with her and cat. It was really weird.
Because Whitney's a loose cannon. She could sing Whole Again at any point, and no one wants to see that.
That was so cringy. The whole thing was cringy, like all the effects and like the big flashes, and then the girl, and also when the girl faded away.
Well, no, when she lunged at her, didn't she? And it went when she faded away.
It was not needed. They could have had her do like a big monologue on her own. Like they didn't have a young version of Dot Cotton sitting there on the episode when it was just Dot for 30 minutes. So, do you know what I mean? They allowed her to have 30 minutes of just her on screen, but
That's
Whitney
true.
sitting in a cell.
Again, it's this hand-holding again by the producers, basically saying, oh, she's hallucinating, rather than us leaving it to the imagination. You could have shown the scene of her just sat there talking to no one on the end of the bed or something
Shona
like that.
can pull that off.
She's an excellent actress.
So-
But she did pull it off, to be fair. The way she portrayed it was excellent.
It's still a bit... It was just... I don't know. I didn't feel like I gained anything extra from seeing that girl, young Whitney, I guess. But I don't know.
They ruined my favourite Atomic Kitten song, and I will never forgive them for that.
That's true.
What would Kelly Katona do? Turning in her grave.
I mean, they used the sound effects, they used actual pop music, they used hallucination and slow motion cameras and flashing lights.
Well,
they literally did all of it in that one prison cell.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, go all in. That's what I say.
But it was what it was. But she's on hunger strike, thinking for some reason it's going to help her.
Well, she said something about being unconscious. She said, I need to become unconscious, as if something... I don't know.
Should we have a
Did she mean like talking...
spiritual meaning? I don't know.
Did she mean like talking to her younger self, and once she's cleared the air of that, she can then feel like she can start to forgive herself?
I don't know.
It was a strange thing to say.
It was just...
What will make her whole again, Ben?
Yeah, it's all a bit silly. This whole everything with Leo has all been a bit dodgy, and it's continuing to be a bit dodgy.
I wanted them
with
to
a good actress.
I wanted them to bring the actor Tony King back in and have him as.
Well, they had his voice, didn't they? So they were near.
Was it Tony's voice?
I don't know.
We need to see on Wikipedia, see if there's a credit of him.
Yeah, you see on the credits, it's
2020
credited.
Oh yeah, we should have bothered doing that. Maybe
too busy. So obviously Gray's obviously getting stressed by Whitney's case.
Yeah,
it's not working.
Which he's doing as an independent solicitor now, just to prove to his solicitor firm that he is good enough to go back to them. We now know the reason why they've kind of pulled him away from the solicitor firm, and that is just the Leo thing. I think that seems a bit harsh. I mean, they don't have to retire him quite, as early just because of that. They could have maybe demoted him to like photocopy boy, maybe, and got him to carry on with the Whitney case. It seemed a bit silly. It seemed like a very knee-jerk reaction by the solicitor firm.
It feels all a bit... Obviously, I don't know how solicitors work, but...
Like that.
I know, but they were like, you lost the case, so you're suspended.
No, it wasn't the case, though, was it? It was
hiring Leo.
It was hiring Leo. That's what I say. This week we found out it was because he hired Leo.
Yeah, but
and so
she's his boss, so she should get in trouble for allowing him to hire Leo.
But that's what I thought, because surely surely he's just recommending them. At the end of the day, the hiring should be done by the actual partners of the solicitor firm. So why aren't the partners being given a bit of time off, paid leave? It just seems a bit nutty that they seem to have picked all that, they put all the blame onto Gray.
Yeah. It's very handy for the storyline, isn't it? Putting his pressure up.
Very handy.
Because he's pretending to go to work to sort of keep up appearances. But Mitch is like stalking him, thinking he's cheating because Jack, who witnesses everything in the whole of London,
he's now a detective outside of his role of work,
saw him go into a hotel somewhere.
Casual conversation over the air table.
So he's followed him, and Mitch thought he was cheating, and that's when Gray got the wrong end of the stick, thinking that Chantel had told the family that they're not doing very well. Because she's looking for work and stuff. So he then beats Chantel.
Yeah. And
then finds out from Mitch, actually, no, I just phoned your law firm. So he kind of felt guilty for beating Chantel.
No, he felt guilty because the reason he beat Chantel. It wasn't that he beat Chantel. That was fine. That's fair game. Let's just go ahead and beat my wife up.
It's really odd, isn't it? About that. So Gray, he was fine with beating her up at the time.
Yeah.
But then when he found out that she didn't actually tell her family anything, then he felt bad.
He felt remorse. And it's like, well, no, Gray, feel remorse that you did it in the first place. That's an awful thing to, like, the only reason he feels bad for it. I mean, if he never found out, I wonder what his reaction would have been when he returned after getting milk from the minute mark.
Yeah, it's all very odd. But yeah, I'm still waiting for this to go on to like the next bit. Like we've seen these scenes with Gray and Chantel quite a lot, like 8 6 months, is it? I want it to...
It needs to move
her
on.
to talk to someone or someone to see I don't know, something. It needs something.
Well, there's a story developing between her and Crit now, where she's going to be working at the call centre for a bit of extra money. That's obviously going to rub Gray the wrong way. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, where we have so many stories where things are going so quickly, and this story, they really seem to be kind of padding it out for all it's worth. They've almost done the exact opposite. They're really padding it out, and I think you're right. It needs to develop a little further now.
It's just the same thing. There's only so many times we can witness Chantal.
Yeah, before it stops being quite as shocking. Yeah. The first time it was truly shocking, and not to say that we should be not showing the gravitas of the situation, but they need to kind of not take it to an extreme where the violence gets worse, but take it to an extreme where the storyline perhaps psychologically gets maybe a bit worse.
I agree. Who have we got else? Happy couples. Well, not so happy. 2 proposals, both turned down this week.
Yeah.
Because Stuart thought it'd be a good idea to propose to Rainey because she was feeling a bit down because her ex-client turned up and her past was sort of following her, but she said no.
Well, she did. She said that he was being, he was almost doing it as a reaction to what Linda had said to her, and he was just doing it to cheer her up rather for the right reasons.
Because Linda was really horrible to her, I thought, in the
really unnecessarily
restaurant.
As well, because her and Stuart were being really supportive.
Yeah, they just saved their lives.
Yeah.
And she just slagged Rainey off in front of everyone. She needs a drink, doesn't she?
She does. She needs to calm down and have a vodka.
I go back to the quote that Lou Bill said about Angie back in 86. I'm going to go with 86, where she said, when Angie was sober, she said, I think I preferred her with a drink in her. Maybe Linda, she's a bit horrible. So...
She's a nasty piece of work. What a nasty woman. Yeah.
Not nice.
I mean, I suppose her and Stuart are getting a bit more friendlier, but we also found out that Mick is considering selling up the pub too, which is the right thing to do.
They won't, but it'll be good.
Well, or at least give the lease over to perhaps another Carter. Do you hear me?
Not going back there.
Do you hear me?
Danny Hatchard?
Yeah, Danny Hatchard, come back.
He'll come back. Vegan at the Vic.
We need more. Yeah. Oh my God, they're going to do a vegan menu. I bet that'll go down like a pile of wet sick.
We also had the other proposal that was denied by Lola.
Much to Lexi's disappointment.
Jay didn't even know that they'd broken up, apparently.
But Lola did.
Lola did, because she was up in Peter Bill's pants.
Right, who's to blame, Peter or Lola, or they both had a part in it?
Yeah, I saw some people saying that Peter was making her drunk and then took advantage of her. I don't know. She knew what she was doing. They were both drunk. He was drinking too. I don't think anyone took advantage of anyone.
It had to be. I'm sorry, it was consensual. She knew what she was doing. It wasn't that she wasn't... And they were both...
She was eyeballing him on the table last week.
Exactly.
She was undressing him with his eyes.
Yep. It was inevitable. It just happened quicker than we thought. They met at a
gay bar.
Yeah.
Where all the straight people...
There's an air hockey table now. Did you know there's an air hockey table at the gay bar?
All the straight people meet there. But yeah, she slept with Peter. He stayed over, but then she said, don't tell anyone. But then Callum came downstairs. So...
Ben didn't hear anything.
No. So they must have been really quiet. Yeah. I don't know how that really went on at the house, at the Mitchell house. Maybe because Ben was there, Callum was there, Lexi was there.
Well, they might have, I don't know, maybe they did it in the alleyway and then she just said, oh, come back to mine, and then she just passed out. Yeah, just both passed out. They didn't have a bottle of vodka between them. I mean, I'd be passing out after a shot.
Habiba had her one line because she had a personal training session with Peter, so that's ticked for this week. Jags had his one line, so that was ticked for the week. So
can't wait for Jags and Habiba.
I know, one line each then. They'll share a line soon when they're a couple.
Yeah, so they're downgrading them to one line between them.
And then she obviously went to have an abortion, which took a long time. It went from daytime to nighttime, and she was still there. Yeah, in that room.
Obviously, I'm not female.
Aren't you?
No, sadly not. But I thought it was just a case of you have the consultation with the doctor, you come back a week later, then you are given one pill, and then you come back the following day and have a second pill. None of that seemed to happen. It was just that she turned up, kept looking in the doorway to see if Jay was going to be there, and then, as you say, 3 hours later. So God knows what happened in that doctor's surgery.
I know, everything happened off screen as well. Like, do you remember... I'm going Classic EastEnders again, but when Michelle went to have the abortion, and they spent so much time on that, and
it was a different.
Yeah, but it was so well done. Like they could have done an updated version with Lola, maybe.
They did. Haven't they done a Termination story recently? And they had them kind of go through the. Oh no, that's Coronation Street. I'll be quiet now.
Coronation Street's very good at the moment.
That's twice you've shocked me this week.
But I think that's basically the basics of the week, wasn't it? I think
it is.
It was all a bit odd. I don't know. It all feels a bit odd. Sharon was in a few scenes, handful of scenes, not taking care of baby Caden.
We got a comment this week, by the way, about what we said about not being much Sharon in the week. Someone wrote down everything that happened not the week just gone, but the week before, of what happened with Sharon, and actually putting it into context like that, Sharon's actually had quite a lot going on.
Yeah, but all those bullet points equate to 3 minutes of screen time within 4 weeks.
That's okay, because then we've kind of moved on, and they talked about Dennis's funeral this week.
Yeah, without Sharon.
That's true. But they kept saying, I haven't got time for this, Stuart. I need to do the funeral for Dennis.
But yeah, dodgy weeks are probably good. We're on holiday, so not much else to talk about. So thanks, EastEnders. They must have planned that.
Yeah, they did it on purpose. And they gave us a Friday off as well, because Sports Relief is on. Did I mention
right.
Sports Relief? Don't forget to donate.
So the second half of this podcast is going to be our review of 1992, which is just aired on Classic EastEnders.
Yes, on the Drama Channel. And thank you for the shout out as well from the Drama Channel this week too. It was nice for them to say hello. And after you've listened to the Classic, stay tuned to the end, because we're just going to give you a few more details of how you can get in touch with us.
Classic EastEnders and the Drama Channel have reached another year.
Yeah, a good year. A very good year. 1992. It's a classic in every sense of the word.
It was really good. There was like a slight lull in the summer.
Not a lull, not a laugh out loud moment.
No, but like a bit like
A lull.
It was Ian and Hattie, and it was all a bit boring, really.
Yeah, but then
for a few weeks.
It's always that way, isn't it? The summer months are always the slow, nice heat. No one wants to watch TV. They all want to go out into their garden. I don't know what the summer was like in 92. Was it particularly hot?
Well, Arthur was getting quite hot. Out and about. So it must have been white.
And that was in the winter. He was thawing that ice away before he got his arthritis.
He was. I mean, 92, when you look at it as a whole year, I guess it looks well planned out. Like when you go from the beginning to the end, like all the new storylines all come together and lead to this big like extra storylines at the end of the year.
And nothing seems to stop and start, or something seems to develop and then all of a sudden ends for no reason whatsoever. Yeah, there seemed to be a plan to 92, and it really reflects the quality of the show. I really enjoyed it. Top draw.
It was really, really good. Like, you just want to watch more and more and more and more. We're going to start, as we always do when we do reviews of the year, we break them up into 3-month stints, like our seasons. And right at the beginning of the year...
Winter. January to March.
Yeah. Wilmot Brown turned up with his voice recordings to Kathy.
He's making tapes for Kathy, wasn't he? He was he was requesting her forgiveness, but he still thought he did nothing wrong.
No.
But he thought he deserved a second chance on the square.
Hello, Kathy.
Poor Kathy. It really broke her.
Yeah, I know, but she listened to the tapes on like her sound system as well, like to everyone to hear on the square.
She didn't have a Walkman. Only Dot at the moment has a Walkman on the square.
And Janine.
Janine got one at Christmas, so she's got to wait a whole year before she can share that with Kathy.
But that was good, because there was a really good relationship with Rachel and Kathy, which like blossomed because Kathy sought help from her.
And Michelle got a bit jealous of that as well, because Michelle had her friendship with Kathy and her friendship with Rachel, and she didn't like sharing her friend. No. It was a bit like Linda and Sharon and Michelle. It was like that all over again.
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, Michelle, she's a bit lost really this year as a character. She was a bit all over the place, wasn't she?
Well, she didn't really know what, like, she was a bit promiscuous, and she was becoming her mum more and more. Like whenever something would happen near her, she'd need to know what the gossip was immediately.
And she would always walk in on reveals all the time. But Kathy, I can't really remember what happened, because Wilmot Brown wanted to move into the square. He wanted to move back to his house, didn't he? And he did move back in, and like it was Ron, Pete, Frank, and Ian went to like sort him out.
Well, no, they were being mischievous, weren't they? So Pete started scratching his car, and like a child, and Ron would say, "Oh, make room for the lady," and like he'd be really horrible to poor old Wilmot Brown. I think poor Wilmot Brown. That's an awful thing to say, but yeah, obviously what he did was ultimately very wrong. But Kathy got all right because she got a payout.
Yeah, and also Kathy didn't need all those stupid men to do it for her, because she sorted it out herself.
Well, she did, because that's what happened, wasn't it? There was the showdown in the end when she went to visit Wilmot Brown, and Pete thought he was still being like her knight in shining armour. And
it was a three-hander, wasn't it?
It was, and she pretty much basically said, we've all made mistakes, but what you ultimately done is the worst mistake you could do, and it is only right that you should leave the square. And he did. He's a man of his word.
Yeah, he cried in the bath.
Yes, he did. Well, he tried to commit suicide.
Oh yeah,
and Pete stopped him. Yeah. He was like, "What? No, you won't get away with that easily."
And that's the last of Wilmot Brown for quite some time.
For now, yes.
And other things, we had we still had like the aftermath of Mark revealing that he's HIV to his family.
Well, that was a kind of a hangover from 91, wasn't it? So from the end of 91, he was desperate to tell his mum and dad. He thought it was only right to tell them.
And it was Arthur like not really accepting it. And they didn't know how to talk to each other as father and son, did they? And it was really interesting how they did that. Because that could have been written and you could have ended up thinking, like, hating Arthur. But you saw his side and you saw... He's such a complex character, Arthur. You don't really get male characters like that anymore.
No.
There's so much about him that he wanted to accept it, but he didn't know how to.
But I think it wasn't just wanting to accept. I think he almost wanted Mark to to be dead to him, but he wanted... If he accepted that Mark was going to die now by almost ignoring him and not involving him in his life, I think he thought that it would be easier for him in the future to then accept Mark's death. But Mark was adamant and saying to him, it's a long time, I'm not sick, I'm not going to get... Unless I get very sick, I'm not going to die. So we should embrace the time we have together.
That's where Arthur was wanting to work on his own, which also led to Mrs. Hewitt, the floozy of the year.
Yes. Oh, I love Mrs. Hewitt and Arthur. I love that they've done a story like this. It works really well as well. It's surprising. On paper, you think, no, that's silly. But
yeah, when I read about
really
it, I thought, why have they done that to Pauline and Arthur? That's awful. That's a really bad decision. But watching it on screen, it actually worked really well, and it's done really well.
And I understand why Arthur kind of would want to do that, because I think he saw his family almost be torn apart around him. Like him and Pauline aren't as close as they used to be. He said they're very boring and that they don't have, like, nothing is new between them anymore. And it's and with Mark, like I say, his relationship is better with Mark, but it's still not as strong as it used to be.
And everyone calls him like reliable Arthur. Like there's nothing, like there was no fight. Like when people would describe him in the square, there wouldn't be Arthur. There's no fire behind him. He's just Arthur. And that's why him meeting Miss Hewitt and her listening to him, and they joked together and she would laugh at his jokes and they could tell stories together. That's why he sort of felt like a new person, didn't he?
She gave him the attention that he craved. It's like he was always just a footnote, wasn't he, in the square, or he always felt that way. I mean, ultimately that perhaps what led to his depression storyline also, because he always felt like he was just pushed to one side all the time. It's like, oh, Arthur, he's made a mistake again.
He'll get over it,
Yeah, he'll get over it. And Mrs. Hewitt kind of gave him the attention and the love that he really felt like he was missing out from his family.
But it's written really well because she didn't go into it wanting an affair.
No.
Like, they had a friendship and she dated Pete for a bit.
Yes.
That soon
he took her to the races.
He did.
But she didn't like his flashiness. So good on you. Again, another reason to love Mrs. Hewitt. He was like throwing money about, like trying to show off to her, wasn't he? He was like, oh, it's only... I've lost £90 on the GGs. It's only money. Don't you worry about it. Go on a pint. Yeah, a pint.
And they basically wrote in Miss Hewitt because Wendy Richards was off for about 3-4 months. She was visiting Kenny, taking care of him off screen, and that's why they made this storyline.
Wendy Richard wasn't, Pauline was. Wendy Richard. What was there a reason
she was
why
filming the spin-off?
To
Keeping Up Appearance. Are You Being Served?
Are You Being Served? Yeah, Grace and I forget what it was, but it was awful in the early 90s. It was a really bad comedy series, yes, and so she had to go off and film that. But since we're still on the subject of the Fowlers, I think we should also talk about how Arthur was a bit of a rock to Mark in the spring months of April and June, where he helped Mark and Jill, and like was quite supportive to Mark when they met up again together. And because Jill came to the square last year wanting to visit Mark and talk about how they both had contracted the HIV virus, and he kind of didn't want anything to do with her, but they left it on good terms. But because Mark felt isolated by his dad and his mum and by the community on the square,
he went back
to her because he thought she was like a rock to him. She was someone he could talk openly about the virus too.
And Jill was such a great character too.
Oh, like, brilliant.
It was so well, like the whole wedding and the build up to it and her then dying the next day. It was just, everything was so well done. It was really sad and like tragic, but it was just so well done on screen because Rachel and Michelle helped.
Yeah.
And even Phil, nice guy Phil,
helped.
He
drove the car, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he didn't know the circumstances of it, because the whole square still believed that Mark has cancer, or
Jill died of cancer,
and that's the premise they're kind of building it onto.
But again, it was just so well done. And your heart went out to her because the character was just written. She just wanted to live life, didn't she? Because she knew she had this. That's why she was doing it. So,
and she was. I think she was really loved by the Square as well. She was integrated quite well. She was never a full character on the Square, but when she was there, she would walk backwards.
Yeah, and everyone else did.
Yep, she'd have ice cream for dinner instead of having a normal meal. You know, she was great. I mean, one of my favourite things I think you've ever said was when we were watching the episode when she died. You just turned and looked at me and said, "She's now walking backwards in heaven." I thought, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's what she's up to.
That's how you remember Jill, though. There's this kind of really fun character. She had her low points, but because she was so well built and you could really believe in her, you know, it's amazing. Like, you really felt for her character when she died, and
really
you felt
well
for Mark
written.
as well. And it actually gave a soft side to Mark, which I think he needed. Mark Fowler was always seen as kind of rebellious, didn't have time for anyone, always ran away from his responsibilities. But when Jill was introduced in those 3 months,
He was settled.
He was
and
settling.
then when she died, they were really good at showing how he had that slow, gradual progression into drinking and being angry at everything. And it was really well subtly done, which you don't really get that nowadays.
And he replaced Jill, didn't he, with Mandy, who came onto the Square this year.
Yeah, she was a new character.
Yeah,
good
so-
casting, like her.
She's a really great character, actually. She's really interesting. She's a bit, again, mischievous. She likes to cause trouble. When people try... She almost pushes people away for the people who try to help her by deliberately starting rumours about them and making like derogatory comments to everyone, which is a really weird kind of survival technique, really.
Yeah, but it makes sense because she's been abandoned her whole life. So she probably thinks this person's getting too close now, so I'm going to sabotage that before they can abandon me, I guess, is the thing going there. But yeah, she was really good casting. Friends with Sam, who's not had the best year.
I mean, Sam, I last year she was fine when they had the wedding. I liked them when they eloped, her and Ricky. That was really good. But she was such a one-tonal character this year. All it was, I've got my modelling.
Yeah, I had to think about my career.
What about my career, Ricky? She's done like 2 things. Like,
I know.
She dressed up as a bowl of soup or a cheese. She dressed up as a cheese in a supermarket.
Yeah.
And
did page 3, kind of.
Well, this is
by
what
accident.
happened. Yeah, so she was doing a free photo shoot so she could get a few headshots ready to hand out to like the model agencies. And accidentally, she did some topless modelling, which then ended up in Frank's favourite magazine.
Everyone saw it, didn't they? Phil, Grant, Ricky, everyone's
Yeah.
seen a bit of Sam.
Whether you liked it or not, you were seeing a bit of Sam.
But I'm thinking, speaking of the Mitchells, later in the year, between like July, September time, Sharon got a bit busy with Phil. Because Grant's been just horrible. He's not the best husband, is he? He's possessive, he's angry, he's jealous.
He goes out when he wants to, leaves Sharon to run the pub by herself.
She's not allowed to go out.
But the sexual tension was palpable. Between Phil and Sharon, it was like 2019. It was like the opposite of 2019, actually, but it was like 2019 Shianu palpable.
Yeah, but it is funny seeing it because Phil's like really gentle and he's really understanding and he's like pro women and pro everything, and Sharon can do what she wants, and it's like it is a different character to what he's become now.
I mean, he's become hardened over the years. If we're going to do it
Because of Sharon.
because of Sharon, but also because he's almost had to take the role over from Grant, hasn't he? So if we're going to do a retrospective really quickly of Phil, that's probably the reason why he's now become what Phil is today. But yeah, seeing this young Phil, and I know I've said it a million times before this, but it's actually like looking at Ben Mitchell, like the casting of Ben Mitchell
His
to
eyes.
now. It's everything, his face.
And his,
He's like, and yeah, he's this really gentle. He's the gentler of the Mitchell brothers. He's the kind one, and Sharon.
That's what Sharon fell in love with.
That's what Sharon loves. Yeah,
That's why she fell in love with Keanu, because he was gentle compared to Phil.
It's funny seeing the Shianu story. You can kind of see the because everyone compares it to Sharon Gate, and it is essentially what it was. It was Sharon Gate 2.0. But you can really see it now when you see the episodes of 1992 of the way that Phil is Keanu and Grant is Phil, and it's almost a carbon copy. But if it worked once, why not try it again?
Yeah, it's again like the Miss Hewitt affair. It's just done really well, and it's really subtly dropped in throughout the year, and it just built to a new Vic set as well. We had after a fire.
Oh yeah, because Grant decides to burn it down for the insurance money because he was meant to do a job for someone, recommended someone else to do the job. They then ran away with the money that they stole from the
the bank or the building society, and so the madman. Oh
yeah, the scary gangster.
He was loopy-loo, wasn't he?
He was basically like a rich young boy who was a bit off his head, wasn't he?
He was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the actor was amazing. Like, I was invested in it.
I mean, if you can scare Phil and Grant, you know you've got something going for you.
But again, I have to say that Grant and Phil were great because you could tell that they were hot on their toes by trying to find a way of getting the money back. But the way they stayed, their demeanour was so calm and cool in front of him. But you could tell, like, if there was like a smellometer on that television screen, you'd be smelling something not very pleasant that was coming out of them as they were standing in front of that guy. Also, one last thing for the Mitchells, we were introduced to Nigel Bates.
Yes, he became a full-time character.
Yeah, so first of all, he was conned by, or Frank was conned Grant for getting his car back from Nigel, and loved so much by people, he
back
came
by
back
popular
again.
demand, a bit like Callum.
Yeah, I like Nigel.
Yeah, he's alright. It's really funny how he was when he was back full time. Everyone, all of a sudden, he'd always been there. Like everyone knew him. Like, oh, you're in the pub again. Like, we've never seen you before, but we were led to believe he's always been around, I guess. So yeah, he's okay. He's
staying with Dot because Dot is the resident innkeeper, isn't he? Yeah, she likes taking people in, and as a thank you in return, he dyed all the socks and her bathroom blue.
Yeah, we saw Dot's bathroom, so we're seeing bits of her set bit by bit.
We're seeing much more of little bits of people's houses. Perhaps they moved to a larger studio at this point.
Towards the end of the year as well, we had Cindy coming back after Ian's quite boring year. Like, he was acting weird and he dated that woman visiting prostitutes.
And also forced himself upon Hattie, which I thought, this is the one story which I thought was strange they didn't continue, because I think it would have been interesting if Kathy had found that out, if she had a word with Ian, because obviously Ian's her son, and Kathy's been in a situation where she's had someone force themselves on her too, and I think it would have been an interesting dynamic to see if Kathy had found that out from Hattie, because he was quite forceful with her as well. He was like, oh no, go on, you want it.
Yeah, and she kicked him in the balls and ran away.
Good for her, rightly so.
But Ian, it was kind of like they didn't know what to do with Ian for 8 months, and then at the end of the year they're like, oh, we'll get Cindy back and give him some sort of course.
Well, they made him go from like okay, like kind Ian to nasty Ian in like 0 to 11, like 0 to 100 in like 1 year. And I think the writers realised that they had to rein him in a little bit again. So I think the right choice was to bring Cindy back to kind of give him his soft side once again. But oh my god, when we know there's going to be fireworks coming out of that.
But even the way he got Cindy back felt like he made her feel like she needed him. To me, like he was flashing his money, so he was still kind of cringy and creepy and stalkery around her.
And the way he was saying he didn't care if she came back is like, you know, almost like she was a possession to him. She was a prize, wasn't she? And but so again, great. I mean, I forget how much fun Ian Beale was as a character really in the old days. And you can kind of see why Ian Beale has stood the test of time quite well.
And obviously at Christmas we had the big Pat storyline, because she's been running Pat cabs for the year.
Yes, much to Frank's disgruntlement. She's running a very successul cab business, but the first rule of running a cab business is you don't drink and drive, Pat.
No. Didn't have that much, did she, Pete? Nah.
Oh no, Pete was the only one who supported her, knowing that he's had a drink and drive conviction and drove without a licence. It's like, God's sake, Pete. If I want advice about what you should and shouldn't do on the road, you're the last man I will ask.
But this year shows how great Pat and Frank are, because during the summer they had it was like a comedy storyline where they swapped roles with each other's companies. And that's like a really good example of good comedy in EastEnders, and both actors do comedy really well. And at the end of the year you got to see their more dramatic side, where she's struggling with hitting the girl, and also when Frank finds out that his mum's died,
all in the space of 1 week, Christmas week.
And the way that Mike Reid delivers the line when he told Ricky that his mum has died, it was really realistic, and I really felt like everything. So it just shows how great they are, both of them. They can do comedy and they can do drama.
I think they're a good dynamic, actually. I think Pat, Frank and Ricky are a really good trisector of, like, that Butcher family is really good. It's just that Sam kind of ruins it and muddies the water somewhat with her kind of redundant story.
And yeah, Sam's she's leaving soon. It's fine.
It's fine. But no, the Pat story, the drink driving story was fantastic, and I think it was a really good way of rounding off the year. They did well with that. And there was also the will they, won't they with Bill and Sharon again.
Oh yeah, because Ricky nearly caught them, and also we had Arthur really taking the mick with Miss Hewitt by basically abandoning
He
Pauline
keeps
at
leaving
every...
her.
Yeah.
He keeps arranging dates with her, like to go to the cinema or go to the pub.
Yeah.
And then he's gone till like midnight. And she always asks him, what is it? And he's like, oh yeah, I had some allotment work to do. It's like, what, at midnight? Not only will the soil be frozen at that point, like, what do you have to do?
I know, he's being very naughty, and you do feel for Pauline, which is quite a difficult thing to do, but you do.
But I am loving the Arthur and Mrs. Stewart
it is
affair.
funny.
I really do.
It's like when they slept together and she was like, can I get you anything else? And while she was leaning over him with her like buttons undone.
No, she said, what would you like? Would you like to do it again, or would you like a coffee? And he was like, I'll have a coffee. Like, wow, Arthur. Once in one night? That's crazy.
But yeah, very good year. Apart from the dodgy bit in the middle with Ian and his restaurant and cockroaches and
the
stuff.
mill machine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he was going crazy because he thought that people will find out about the cockroaches. Honourable mention for the Taverniers. Half of them left.
Yeah, thank God.
Thank
That's
goodness.
why it was so good.
Yeah. And Jules got attacked by pre-Spice Girls Emma Bunton. Baby Spice. Who thought she had it in her?
Yeah, she can take him on. But, yeah, very good. B. That's my rating.
Oh,
B.
really? B+ for me.
Ooh.
Verging on it. It's a very strong B+. I'm verging on an A-.
Well, there you go. That was our review of 1992, which is obviously being shown on Classic EastEnders at the moment, so you can all catch up if you want to.
Yeah, if you can watch it in the UK on UK TV Player, but you can get a VPN if you live outside the UK. Not that I would ever recommend it, but that's one way to watch it.
Thank you again for listening. I hope you enjoyed this shorter extra episode. Don't forget you can get in touch with us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly, or on our Facebook group by just searching EastEnders Weekly Podcast. You can also find our YouTube channel, where this week I do a review of Kate and Oates' executive producing job so far, and also I just generally ramble about EastEnders. Our YouTube channel just by searching Walford Weekly Podcast. Thanks again for joining us, and a full episode will be back next week with me.
We'll be back in full.
And Ben.
That's a Martin Lewis reference for anyone.
Oh, I didn't get it.
In full. He always says in full.
Pay your card in full. Bye, everyone.
Bye.